I felt like an alien to other people. You know what I mean? I felt so different. And and I felt that way most of my life, like I don't belong, kind of. I was hiding from myself, and drugs helped me do that. They helped me feel like I fit in.
That's Tyree Woods there talking about addiction, specifically addiction to cocaine. That's something I know a lot about. He's going to share his remarkable journey with us on this week's show. And when I say remarkable, he really is a remarkable human being. He served his country in Afghanistan, and now he writes about healing and recovery in his own songs.
When I woke up, the sirens wailed just as the ceiling fell. I escaped just in time.
Musician Tyree Woods, just a beautiful human being, on this week's VV's BFB. So you grew up in Muskegon Heights, Michigan, which is what? Where is that in Michigan?
West Michigan.
Okay, and tough town.
It's a tough town, and it's bordered by towns. I mean, the lines are very clear and present, and
Meaning the haves and have-nots.
The haves and have-nots.
Yeah.
And you go towards North Muskegon, Mona Shores, and then you have I'm not sure if you're familiar with Green Sky Bluegrass.
Sure.
Paul Hoffman, he's from Mona Shores, just 15 miles away. Different world, bro. You know what I mean? Really, really different world. And the foster family, the second foster family I lived with, was in the northern part of Muskegon as well, and it was a different world.
Well, what happened, Tyree, in terms of being removed from your biological parents?
I think it was my mom. Just, I don't think she could deal with it. I think she was having her own issues, and I have a twin sister and a little sister. Or I had a little sister. She passed a couple years ago.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. And I just, everything happens the way it's supposed to. I look back on it and I'm like, if I hadn't have been removed from that area, and when we actually transplanted to Portland, Oregon. So we lived in Gresham, which is just East Portland, Oregon, heading towards Mount Hood. And all those kids, meth became a big deal, and it's I'd see some of them and I'm like, man, would I have, if I hadn't have gone through what I went through, there's a good chance that I would end up just like these guys. You know what I mean? So while I wanted to not be where I was at, I think I was supposed to be there. I obviously was.
There's something to be said about that, but you sure don't feel like it at the time, I bet,
don't, man. You don't.
How many foster families did you go through?
Two.
And how does that work? Is it that, why do you go through multiple? Because something doesn't work out?
There was without going through all of it, there was the first foster family, there was a problem with drugs in the family. And here I am, I'm the most non-organic person to this deal. I'm 12 years old, no self-confidence, you know what I mean? And honestly, I felt I was picked at by the mother, and I think she just needed a whipping boy, kind of, you know what I mean? And it's so it was a tough deal. And then this other family became available, and I stayed with them all the way through graduating high school. Graduated high school, and
that was better.
It was better. Yeah, it was better. It was better. It had its own deals. Alcoholism is a big deal, bro. You know what I mean?
Oh, dude.
And and that's what I think really stopped me from drinking. I don't drink, and it's I'm not making a stand by not drinking or making a statement, but I've just seen losing my sister to it, and far before that, seeing people and how they could act towards kids on it. I'm like, man, I'll be damned if I'm gonna treat anybody like that, especially children that don't know any better.
Dude, let me tell you something. God bless the people who can drink responsibly and moderately.
Totally.
Wish I could do that.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
That sounds like a lot of fun, and I think most people can do that, but there are some people who just absolutely should not be drinking. And for all the talk about fentanyl and things like that, which is important to talk about, obviously, you go to any ER doctor, any ER nurse, and they will tell you overwhelmingly the statistics of the people who end up there who are in bad shape.
Yeah.
Booze.
Yeah.
Booze is the common denominator there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's a tough one, and the word alcohol stems from this it's called Al Ghul, this body eating demon. You know what I mean? It's like it's
What's
super far out, but it's I mean it's where it comes from. That
Al
name Al
Ghul?
Ghul. You know,
Al Ghul,
I don't, it
interesting.
is it's far out, man. But it's like it makes sense. You know,
Yeah.
it's like you know, this low vibration that kind of follows you around and attracts other low vibrations. And you know, and like you're right, there are some folks that can do it responsibly and very little, but you know, if you mix in a little bit of trauma and then you add that, then uh, usually it's a different thing from what I've seen. You know,
That's
like
hard.
hmm
That's really freaking hard,
yeah.
man. Well, so in high school, you mentioned that you struggled with your confidence when you were younger.
hmm
Did you find it because you were a pretty damn good football player?
Yeah, I was. You know what? I needed an outlet, and football became a healthy outlet for aggression. You know what I mean? It's like, and so I really enjoyed it, and it meant a lot to me, and it got me through high school, I would say. You
Mm-hmm.
know, and so yeah, I at that point in my life, football was very important. Then going to college, I fell out of love with it. You know, like I didn't want to take defensive football theory classes and
Mm-hmm.
things. You know, like so I just kind of went a different way, and I don't have any I don't have any regrets about that. Like it was there when I needed it, and then I kind of walked away from it. I will say that like playing football was
What position?
I played middle linebacker and I played a strike defensive end. You know what I
Oh
mean?
wow.
So it was like war. You know what I mean? It was
Yeah,
war on
yeah.
the. It really was. It was just like you know. It was just it was wild, chaotic.
And everything that you went through childhood, here you now have this opportunity where you've been the punching bag for most of
hmm
your life.
hmm
Now someone else is going to
Oh
be,
yeah,
sometimes literally in practice, the tackling dummies, right? Like,
totally, totally. Yeah, and I was and I was good at that. I was good at physical stuff, you know, and that also like kind of transitioned into the military, you know, like I was good at being strong and
mm-hmm.
yeah, I had to be, you know, but at the same time, like very emotional, you know, like I've never not been emotional. I got so many fights as a kid and I never fought one time and didn't cry afterwards. And it was just
Why is what would stir those emotions?
like looking back on it now, I don't think we can hurt anybody without hurting ourselves. You know what I mean? Like I
Wow.
feel that way. You know, it's like and I wasn't out there like losing fights. You know, and I'm not bragging about fighting, but you know, like it hurt me at my core. You know, to hurt somebody else. You know, even if they deserved it or I felt that they deserved it at the time. You know,
That's
and
actually kind of beautiful,
yeah,
to be honest with you.
well, yeah, I think so too. I think so too. You know, and I'm still emotional. You know, I'm still like you know, I remember having a babysitter that I ran into. Actually, no, it was social media. She wrote me, and she was like, "I just read this article," and she was like, "This can't be about the sensitive boy that I used to babysit." I was like, "It is," you know. And
Yeah.
I saw like a lot of guys that were, you know, you had in the military at least you had your guys that were loud and like you know pseudo alpha males and saying what they were going to do when this
Mm-hmm.
happened. They
Mm-hmm.
couldn't wait to get in the shit and all this stuff, but what I saw was the quiet guys, the sensitive guys were some of the toughest. You know what I mean? They were the ones that did what needed to be done without thinking about it. You know what I
Mm.
mean? And weren't looking for praise or anything like that. And a lot of it's because those people become your family, you know, like with my family history kind of being so tumultuous, like people that I would meet, people that I would bond with in service and combat and training, like those are my brothers. You know
Brothers.
what I mean? Like I would rather get hurt than see them get hurt, you know?
So how did the military happen? So you had a good football career in high school. You played
Mm-hmm.
football in junior college.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
When did the how did you get connected with the military?
You know, I got a chance to meet some cats from New Orleans, and they're in Derek Tabb was the drummer for this band called Rebirth Brass Band down
Great
in New
band,
Orleans. Yeah, super cool
yeah,
band, bro.
yeah.
Super cool sound. and I was living in Portland, Oregon at the time, and me and my buddy had this house or an apartment that everybody would come through and we'd play music for him. And he ended up like being one of the guests at our house one night, and we are playing a song that we made, and we didn't know who he was really, and he was like drumming like he was like that would be the rhythm to that song, and we're like, okay, and he was like, yeah, I'm in this band, Rebirth Brass Band. We want you guys to come down and hang with us for Jazz Fest, and maybe do some playing with us and this and that, be our
Oh,
guests.
that's amazing.
We're backstage guests at Tipitina's, meeting Carl Denson, and you know what I mean. I'm 20 years old. Like I was blown away by it, being introduced by musicians as a musician to other musicians, and I ended up going back to Portland after that jazz fest, and not too long after Katrina happened, and Katrina it was devastating to turn on the TV and see these people begging for help, like they weren't in America, like
I
was it,
remember it, dude.
I mean,
It was fucking
and
awful.
then you're seeing people saying, "Oh, they should have left, or they had a chance to
Oh my
leave," and
gosh.
all this like what you should have done, And so I was working for a place called Hot Lips Pizza at the time, in Portland, Oregon, and I created like a donation thing for.
Hmm.
And then I found out that like first off, if you're gonna create a charity, you got to have an umbrella charity to work underneath. You know what I mean? Like to give you validity.
Okay.
And because people were like, well, how do we know that this money is gonna go towards Katrina? Which is a fair
Sure.
question. But I just decided, I was standing on the bus stop at one point, and I had my skateboard and I had dreadlocks down to my shoulders, and I was like, I'm gonna join the military and I'm gonna be a search and rescue operator. And
Just because like, that's amazing that you would. I mean, most people would never make that leap. Like you see this suffering,
yeah,
and I'm going to go literally jump in and save them.
yeah. And I started telling friends, and they're like, no, yeah, right. And I'm like, I already called a recruiter. You know what I
Wow.
mean? And
Wow.
the recruiter, like, I basically I sold myself on a job that didn't exist, and my recruiter just said, yeah, we got that,
Yeah, we got search and rescue. Sure, you can start search and rescue right now.
Totally,
Yeah,
man.
that's
And
funny.
so, and that's how the military came about for me.
And by the way, you talked about music. People watching may be wondering how you got into music. We're going to come back to you as a
Okay,
musician,
okay.
but let's stay on the military path. Yeah. So now you're which branch was it
The
again?
army.
So now you're in the army and you're 20.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Early 20s, very early 20s. So old enough to have traveled around and seen some stuff in my life,
Yeah.
opposed to like someone that joins when they're 17
Right.
and like they're indoctrinated into like this world that they think is the only one out there. I'd seen the other world. I think that for me in my time in the military, I was like I was somebody living amongst a foreign tribe, and eating their food and singing their songs and doing their thing, but never fully like losing sight of my own convictions. I had
Mm.
so many people say you're going to get brainwashed, and I've had conversations with these people since getting out of the military. They're like, they've apologized for saying that to me. You know what I mean? It's like I didn't get brainwashed, but like I had to learn to live differently. I had to learn. I mean, I had to become a warrior. And that was different. So it's like some of the things like music and some of the more artistic things I had to kind of like shelf to a degree. To kind of be this person that I had to be to survive
Yeah.
in that life.
I
So.
mean, you had to do it because we're in the middle at this point. 2005, 2006. Whenever that was, two
Hmm.
wars,
Hmm.
not one but two,
Yep.
Iraq and Afghanistan.
Exactly. Iraq and Afghanistan, and I luckily didn't have to go to Iraq, but I definitely spent some time in southern and northeastern Afghanistan. And
Well, please talk about that. Let's talk about your first tour.
first tour was, you know what? We trained so much before we went, and it's like I loved the training, but it's like nobody was shooting back at you. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You're planning for all these things, but it's like it's different when shit gets real. And I remember getting over there and just like on the transit there, we had to fly to first we flew to Maine, and then we flew to Germany, and from Germany we flew to I think it was Kuwait initially, and no, it was a place called Kyrgyzstan,
Mm-hmm.
and the base was called Manas, and we'd go there, this big Air Force base, in this place called Kyrgyzstan, and you could see the Himalayas in the background. They look like clouds, you know what I mean? And I remember thinking, I was like, gosh, I wonder if it's gonna even happen, if I'm gonna see war, you know what I mean? I wonder how I will react to this, and afraid that I will cower and not do what I need to do. So many thoughts went through my mind, and I got there, and that year, 2009, 2010, was it was probably the hottest year in terms of kinetic, fighting of that Afghanistan war,
Okay.
and I saw a lot. I saw a lot and experienced a lot and fought and saw how I reacted when shit hit the fan, and I did my best, I didn't try to be a hero at all, but I looked out for the people that I cared about, and we lost a lot of guys. I can't the exact number in my battalion. I think it was 17, between 13 and 17, something like that.
That
But
is
that's
a lot.
it is a lot. It's a lot, and these are like, we're all the battalion is like a big group of people that's separated into individual companies: Alpha, Bravo, Charlie, Delta, Echo, and these are guys you see every day. You know what I mean? These are guys you say what's up to. Some of these guys you got problems with. Some of these guys are friends of your best friends. And you get back to the chow hall, and or black out on communications, because that's what happened every time somebody got fucked up, is that we would go black on communications, so we couldn't so the military could go through their checklist of how you let the family know back stateside that something happened,
Okay.
so you couldn't go on there, which has happened, and like people would find out on Facebook,
Yeah,
you know
that's
what I
that's
mean?
that's bad. Yeah.
But so, and you'd be wondering, like, who is it? Who, you know what I mean? Or listening on the radio, because they wouldn't say names, they'd use a battle roster number. So I'd be, whiskey, then, because that's for W, and then the last four of my social security number. So it's like, unfortunately, like, we knew each other's battle roster numbers pretty well. So when you're calling up like a casualty report or a 9-line medevac, that's part of the information that goes over there, and you're just listening, hoping that you don't hear your buddy's name. You know what I mean? Or hearing your buddy's name and then like processing that, and then it's not like you can go take a nap and you know what I mean, like kind of like get through it. You gotta like soldier up. You know what I mean?
These men
Like,
are dying
yeah,
as you're right.
yeah, yeah.
As we, I just couldn't fathom that.
Yeah, I couldn't either until it was my reality. You know what I mean? It was and it was it was a weird thing, man. It's a deal where it's hard to process that, and I don't think you can ever fully process it. I think it's something that happens over time. Like, I feel like I personally like compartmentalize things, and it takes a while for me to even find those cabinets with those memories in them and begin to process it. A slow kind of deal. And yeah, so it was that first tour in Kandahar, Afghanistan, was wild. And I mean, it was like 130 degrees there, man. I mean, it was
Mm.
just like it was you felt like you were on another world.
How long were you there?
13 months. So
Okay.
we were supposed to be there 12 months, and then back in 2009 or 2010, excuse me, some volcano blew up in Finland or Iceland somewhere. Pardon my geography, but it stopped all flights from going a certain direction. So we all were like, we were like, okay, we're going home in 2 weeks, and they're like, oh,
A
you're not.
friggin' volcano. I mean,
It had like four K's in the name. You know what I
that's
mean? I just,
amazing.
yeah, it was
Of
something
all
else.
things that stops you from
I
going
know,
home,
I
that's
know.
amazing. So when Tyree, I know you did two tours.
Hmm.
When did which tour was it when the munitions explosion happened?
Well, so munitions exploded a lot, but
Okay.
that specific incident happened in RC East, in this place called Fob Bostic. And
Okay.
it's in the mountains, you know what I mean? It's just like a stone's throw away from Pakistan, you know what I mean? What they said was a major supply route for all sorts of, munitions and things like that.
Hey guys, yes, it's that time of the video where I sit here and ask you to do something for me. So, will you do something for me? Hit like and subscribe for me. It really makes a difference in terms of how we get out to a lot of people. And if you have a few bucks to spare, remember we are a nonprofit, the Back from Broken Foundation. If you go to thebfbf.org, thebfbf.org, and make a donation. It's tax deductible and it would go a long way towards supporting our work. Okay, thanks a lot. Back to the episode.
And so yeah, that was a heck of a deal. We had like behind where my hooch was, or like my living quarters for where my team was, there was we had these things called 777s or howitzers, and they're a gun that is, I mean, you got to pull it with a giant truck, and it shoots a munition that's 2 feet long, and it can go for so far. And I mean, it's a very it's a tough thing, it's something that we were glad we had on our side.
Mm-hmm.
And so they would be, I mean, they were probably 70 yards behind us. And then there'd be these HESCO barriers, which are like these big canvas squares that get filled with rocks and then stacked and become like a wall.
Okay.
Anyways, so those things would be shooting all of the time, and like just really loud explosions. And so I got to explain this, the sound. It would go boom, and then and then one morning I was getting up and like I hear boom. I heard the reverse of what was going on. And initially I was like, oh, that's our gun line shooting, and it was our gun line, had somebody had shot a rocket into our gun line, and
Okay.
it lit all of our all the fuses, like all these munitions are separated with, they're dug into the ground and they're separated by these big HESCO partitions and things like that. And those fuses caught on fire, and like this fire was like the sun. And so the fuses are in one area, and then the actual rockets or the bombs themselves are in another area, and the fuses ended up igniting all the 777s.
Wow.
They all went up at one time, and
What did that look like?
like hell. It was like hell. It was like I mean, like it created its own little mushroom cloud. I mean, it threw me, you know what I mean?
Wow.
It was something else, man.
So, what was the reaction? Boom. What did you do?
I I got knocked out, you know what I mean? And I woke up with my buddy. I'm not gonna say his name because he's
That's
in,
fine.
he continued on in the special forces community. He was over over the top of me. He's like, "Are you good, dude?" And I was like, remember looking at him, and I was like, "I think so." So I got up, and there's people running all over the place, and nobody was focused on anyone else. They were just running away from what had just happened, which was just behind us, And I end up, me and my buddy ran back over to where the explosion happened, and because we knew guys were in there. We didn't know if they were all whacked or what. You know what I mean? Like this, after this explosion, like who could survive this?
Yeah.
And we end up finding a way to get and turn the metal into ribbon. It was so hot. It was like I'd never seen metal do this, And we ended up getting into the bunker, and we get down there, and there's munitions that didn't explode that are just spinning on the ground like this. They're definitely messed up, and spitting Willie P, which is called white phosphorus, which is a gnarly chemical, just spitting it out like a smoke machine. And we ended up getting, I think it was 13 guys we saved out of there, and 2 guys didn't make it, and which is like it was so horrible that those 2 guys passed, but the fact that 13 guys survived was like was a miracle. You know what I mean? It
Absolutely.
was, I mean, like, and, you know, I was, you know, afterwards I had people come to me and they're like, man, I can't believe you ran in there. I can't believe you did that. And I was like, well, you know, like I was following Colonel Green, you know what I mean? Who was just a tech driving awesome leader, like superhero in my opinion. You know what I mean? And he's you know, he gave me the bravery to go do what I had to do. But
He was someone you looked up to.
he was, you know what I mean? Some of the higher ups in the military, like I was an E5, so sergeant, you know what I mean? Like lower management if you're looking at it from like a corporate structure, you know.
Yeah.
And he was a colonel, so he was one of my top dogs, you know. And well, I respected this guy. When he came, walked by, I didn't go the other way. I walked toward him, and he'd always say, "Hey, badass." That's all he'd say it to everybody. "Hey, badass," you know. And it's like, yes,
That's great.
sir. You know what I mean? Like, he was just cool, man. Cooler
Yeah.
than the other side of the pillow, bro. He was a cool dude that was all about business, but he like really instilled bravery in me, you know what I mean? And made me braver than I think I actually was, you know, like to see him being brave in this, I'm like, all right, I can do this, you know, like there wasn't a handbook, there wasn't like a protocol for how we were supposed to do this, but it's like I can step one foot in front of the other and get this done. And we did it. We got those 13 guys out, and then
Well, what do you remember, just staying in that moment, Tyree, when you're following Colonel Green into this hell, as you described, right?
mhm,
What do you remember feeling and experiencing as you're trying to save these guys?
I remember kind of waiting to die. And I remember like would I even feel it at the proximity that I was to these munitions that are spinning around me. And I remember going in and looking in the corner, and initially like my brain didn't let me see what it was, and it was you know, like without getting too gory, like one of the dudes had been out in the blast
Yeah.
and it had fried him, bro. And not only fried him, it was bad, you know. And one of his buddies was like crying for him, saying we need to help him, you know, and he's like stopping us from what we're doing to try to help him. And I remember Colonel Green, I'm gonna say is the late great Colonel Green, Colonel Scott Green. He grabbed the guy by his shoulders and like made eye contact with him and said, "We can't do anything for him right now. We got to get these guys out." And I remember that moment, man. I was just like, "Oh my gosh!" Like to have the presence of mind to be in this situation and lead these guys and let this guy know as gracefully as he can in this situation that we gotta. This guy's not alive. We need to get the guys out that are alive. You know, that you know, like I think that like I hear a lot of talk about like great men and wars and it's always the past, but man, there were some awesome leaders that I dealt with, and this guy, he was one of those guys, man. He definitely he made me braver, and yeah, it was so that moment in itself was something that like I felt myself like I said I've always been an emotional person. I felt myself lock up, you know, like I didn't cry. I was just, I remember, you know, like we were trying to clean up after the bomb, after like the mess, you know, that had been made of our living areas and all this and that. I remember somebody listening to Zombie by the Cranberries just blasting it super loud and me just kind of droning out and like picking up my door and doing all this stuff, you know, and I remember it being a moment that I was gonna have to work on later on in the future. You know what I mean? Like it
Yeah.
was something that like I couldn't deal with at that time, but I couldn't. My hands would just shake, bro, like a 700-year-old chupacabra. You know what I mean? I would just be
Wow, that's a
like,
description.
you know what I mean? Like I would just be couldn't eat. There was meat served that night. I couldn't eat it. I couldn't get my hands clean. You know what I mean? I couldn't get you know, me and another guy went back and we got the bodies out, you know, and you know, like nobody wanted to go do that. No, it was a silent thing that like nobody wanted to go back in there. I remember just like getting like this little ATV and going back there and like and getting these guys out. And I mean like that was like you're not supposed to see people like that. You know what I mean? We're not. And but we did it, and you know would have hoped that somebody would have done the same for me had I been in that circumstance. You know, and so yeah, that was what happened at that place at Fob Bostic. And the thing is, that place ended up being closed down after our tour. So it was like it was all for nothing. You know what I
Oh
mean?
gosh.
It was all for nothing. Or there was something that was gained that's beyond that was by I mean I don't know who, you know, but it ended up just being like why did we do it? It was burned down the night we left, you know, and I guess taken back over by the Taliban is the chatter that we got, but it's like I can't, you know, I have a hard time believing anything at this point, you
Yeah,
know what I mean?
yeah.
But yeah, that was my last tour, and I ended up, you know, like I suffered a traumatic brain injury along with just some real bad PTSD that I think started my first tour, man. But like that tour was like we lost less people, but there's something about that was definitely like it was, you know, a mind fuck is what it was, you
So,
know.
what did your PTSD look like when you got home?
It, you know, it's hard. It's there's so many like there's the way they say PTSD is, and these are the symptoms, you know, and but it's hard to differentiate between, you know, what's what. I couldn't sleep, you know what I mean? I had a hard time like with my hand shaking, you know, like sensitivity to loud noises, sensitivity to like loud places with lots of people, you know what I mean? You know, driving was tough, you know, just like feeling like used up and just wrung the fuck out, and then just being like thrown in the dirty clothes hamper. It was the
Mm.
way I felt. You know what I mean? I felt like a fool, and you know,
Why? Because
I think it was. I think it was a lot of it was just, you know, like looking like, you know, unfortunately trying to see it big picture, you know, which is like not always good because you know, it's like it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make
why?
sense to me.
Why were we there?
Why?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Why
Yeah.
why did those guys, why did we have to do that for what, you know? And it's like you know, and you know, and people are like calling you a hero, you know, and like, you know, and my dad is pushing me to do an interview about it, you know what I mean? And I'm like, I didn't want to talk about it, bro. I didn't
Well,
want
because you won an
to.
award.
Yeah, I won an award. Yeah, I did, you know, but it's like, but you know, I guarantee there was somebody else on that boat post that did something heroic as well. You know what I mean? Like, or did, and what was called heroic was just like was my job. You know, was to look out for the dudes to my right and to my left, the dudes that we would play basketball with. You know, that we joke with, and you know, in the chow hall. You know what I mean? These guys that we see every day, that we make eye contact with every day, whether we're in the same unit or not. We're in the same uniform. We're in the same shithole. You know what I mean? Like we were tight, you know, and so it was a tough deal. Like I can't like I don't think, you know, it was a tough deal.
I'm sure it
Yeah,
was.
yeah.
I mean, you just went through hell there, man, and a lot of people did. I want to come back to something that, there's lines that go through your life, right? There was the foster care line, there was the military line. We're going to talk about music in a minute, but the other line is addiction.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of lines,
Mm-hmm.
right? You and
Yeah.
I share an addiction to cocaine.
Yeah, that's true.
How did that come about? When was the first time you did the drug?
It was, you know, it was while being a musician,
Yeah, yeah.
definitely, you
And
know.
we may as well talk about music because they go hand in hand as well.
Mm-hmm.
Guitar player.
Mm-hmm.
How did you connect with music?
I just, you know, the first time was in church as a little boy. was Friendship Baptist Church in Muskegon Heights, Michigan. I remember going to church and like with the gospel choir and seeing that energy, and
Oh
they'd be like,
gosh.
it's the Holy Ghost. They'd be like, that's the Holy Ghost, and it very well could be, but it's also like music is like can do that to people. You know what I mean? Music, so you can call it the Holy Ghost, you can call it music, you can call it energy, whatever it is. It's like it's something that's incredible that makes
Yeah.
you feel
Spiritual.
uplifted. You know what I mean? It is spiritual, man. It's on another level, bro. It's so that was my first my first dealings with music, and I always wrote little songs, man. And they're like poems, and as a little boy, I can remember them. I just write these poems down, and then when I turned, I think I was probably 14. I
Mhm.
traded this. I remember the band Silverchair. They're like this Australian like alternative
Okay.
band. Like
Okay.
I had the CD, and I traded this kid named Russ Graveview.
I love that. I love that you remember his name.
Dude,
That is
I
beautiful. Yeah.
traded him a CD for this old electric guitar that he had,
Okay.
and
That's a good
it
trade.
was a good trade. It had one string on it, and and I remember being like stoked on it, bro. I learned how to play "Smoke on the Water." You can play "Smoke on the Water" with one string.
Smoke on the. Yeah, I love
Totally,
it.
dude. It's
Yeah.
it's a good one, and
Yeah.
I
Bow,
remember.
bow, bow, bow,
Bow,
bow,
bow,
bow, now,
bow.
bow.
Exactly, dude. It's a deep cut.
Yeah, yeah.
And so that's when I realized I wanted to play guitar. And I started playing guitar, but I was still an athlete. I still played football, and it was kind of like weird because it's like, can you be a jock and be a musician? And maybe, it's silly to think about, but, when I was in high school, I was like, I felt like a poser, bro. You know what I mean? Like, and I actually pulled away from it,
Hmm.
the music a little bit, just because I didn't feel like I was like emo enough or whatever to
Hmm.
to
Hmm.
do it, even though that's where my heart was at. And so I ended up like we had a talent competition when I was in I think 11th grade, and we ended up playing like the punk version of "Back That Ass Up," and then we we
Oh
we
man.
segued it into the Celine punk version of the Celine Dion song for Titanic.
What?
And
Okay, I had to hear that at some point,
and we had a guy come out in a dress, like playing the harmony on a recorder first, and then we started, and then finished with what's this song by Blink 182? This is Growing Up, or what's that name? And we ended up winning. You know what I mean? Like
Of
we won the
course.
talent contest. And from then on out, I started playing guitar, man, and I learned, I learned all the bad habits right off the bat because I never had a lesson. You know what I mean? I just learned through trial and error and
Mm.
playing it and messing up and playing and knowing like the beginning of songs for years. You know what I mean? And when I ended up in San Diego, man, I didn't know a lot of people besides football players that I was on the team with, and so I would just go to the beach and just play my guitar,
Mm.
and meet people, and it was just an interesting place to be, and I really felt. I remember like right around that time, 2001, 2002, Jack Johnson was playing at he had like a residency at like the racetrack in I can't remember exactly. It was in San Diego,
Hmm. Hmm.
but I remember seeing him there and listening to that Brushfire Fairy Tales album, and I'm like, man, I can do this.
Hmm.
I could sing and play songs. You know what I mean? I don't have to be a virtuistic guitar player, but I can hold a tune and I can play some chords, and I liked that vibe that he had. It seemed smooth, and it seemed cool, and it seemed relaxed, and it was something that I immediately adhered to. I thought it was just, and I still do. I still think it's some of the coolest music I've ever heard. Like, and I think about people like other guitar players singing, Jim Croce, and then like Cat Stevens and
Mm.
guys like that kind of stuff like really inspired me. And obviously like the greats, Jimmy and all those guys, Eric Clapton, you know. But I decided I was gonna become. I started writing songs with my guitar in San Diego, you
Okay.
know, and that was kind of a pivotal time for me, you know. And I ended up leaving San Diego and going to Portland, Oregon,
Hmm.
and the music scene there was pretty cool. Man, there's a lot of cool music in Portland, you know. And I ended up, you know, just kind of like delving into my own sound, you know, whatever that is. Like I was trying to find my own sound, and you know, and that's how I ended up, you know, meeting Derek Tabb and going to Jazz Fest in New Orleans, and
Yeah.
like really like ended up like that was that was the train of events that led me to the military, you
Military.
know. Yeah.
So coming out of the military, you're dealing with this, your struggles, your personal struggles with PTSD and everything that you, my God, everything you went through. Did you go back into music?
I did.
Yeah.
I
What did
did.
that look like after the military?
Oh, you know what? It's like I told myself that when I get out of the military, everything's gonna be all right. I'm gonna be able to like be me again.
Hmm.
And you know, there was a honeymoon period when I first got out, and then I realized it was kind of like it was a stark deal, dude. Like that. No, I am the one that needs work. It's not like you can just leave this place, go somewhere new, and it's gonna be better. You know what I mean? Like if you don't do the work, you're just gonna bring that.
Oh,
You know what I
you know how many
mean?
times I moved during my drug addiction years thinking that geography was the problem.
Totally, totally.
Like they don't make drugs
No.
in the town over, right?
No. So yeah, I ended up I decided at one point, like I found this place in it's called Stagecoach, and it's like this really small little place right off a lake, you know, very like isolated, that, you know, ended up moving into this condo with my then girlfriend. And like I just one day went to the store, music store, and spent like more money than I had on musical equipment. I bought like you know, because I didn't have much at this time. I'm just getting out of the army. I bought you know, amps and bass guitar and electric guitar and acoustic guitar. And I remember her just being like, "Why did you spend this money?" And
Hmm.
I'm like, "Well, because I feel like I needed to do it, you know, and I feel like I need to make music." And she was like, "Well, it's not going to happen overnight, you know." And I'm like, "Well, what if it does?" You know what I mean? Like, you know, for me, I needed to do that. I needed to do something. And that's when I decided I was going to start a band. I was like, I'm going to create a band, you know, and I was going to taking classes at Colorado Mountain College in Steamboat, and met this kid named Gabe Riding, and he's a super cool kid, and he was like, "I'm a banjo player," and I was like, "Cool, like let's jam." You know what I mean? Like I never played with a banjo player before, never played with bluegrass players before, but I was like, "Let's jam," and we did. And I remember being in a class, a biology class actually, and they were talking about this thing called the Buffalo Commons, which is this idea to try to bring back the buffalo. And I was like, that's gonna be my band name. And
Buffalo
so I
Commons.
had this name, and I had this banjo player, and I started writing songs for it. And you know, like I feel like we filled a niche in our town, you know, like and people were receptive to the music, and we started getting gigs, and you know, we got more players. We got a bass player, and you know, things kind of, you know, started to progress some. And that's really when I saw like the partying aspect
Mm,
of music. You know what I'm saying? Like
sure.
and it's like I can't blame it on anybody, you know what I mean? Cuz like I said, nobody can take you anywhere that you don't want to go. You know what I mean? But I think, you know,
But if you hang out in a barber shop long enough, you're going to get your hair cut.
yeah, definitely, bro. And you know, it's like and if you're, you know, and if you got, you know, a bag full of traumas that are unresolved.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like you're looking for a way to escape. Like I didn't feel like, you know, very few people I felt like I connected with. I felt like an alien to other people. You know what I mean? I felt so different. And and I felt that way most of my life, like I don't belong, kind of, I was hiding from myself, and drugs helped me do that. They helped me like feel like I fit in. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Like I think there's, now looking back on it, I'm like, maybe I'm just not made to like be able to get along with everybody, or not like, not like I don't get along, would not feel like I connect with people. You know what I mean? Like and the drugs made me feel like I could, like I was, one of the kids, one of the people that
And,
were part of this group.
and
Like I belonged.
specifically cocaine.
Cocaine, dude.
Yeah,
Yeah. Taking all your bad feelings and turning them into good
I
feelings,
get it, man.
like so
I mean, it's the ultimate icebreaker, really. Like
totally.
you're feeling, you have that alien like feeling. No one else can get you. You don't get anyone else. But here we got this cocaine here.
Hmm.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay, I'm a part of this.
totally.
Yeah.
Totally. We're about to have four conversations at the same
That's
time.
right. That's right. Oh, those conversations, man. How did we ever do
Oh
that?
man.
I wish sometimes I wish I had recordings of those conversations, but I'm like, no, I don't.
No. No.
Like, because
No.
I mean, the babbling, the constant, like it's like a dog when it sees a squirrel, and you
Totally.
go to the next. Oh my gosh, those conversations. So, well, because and cocaine was just so. It's a seductive drug,
Hmm.
and
Hmm.
that's why it's so psychologically addicting.
Hmm. Hmm. It was for me. Whatever my chemistry is, it worked along with it very well. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And made and it and it made me feel good. And I wasn't feeling good. Like getting on stage and playing music like made me feel good, but I like muddied that up with that drug,
Mm.
and it wasn't all the time, but it was like it started off being like maybe something that happened like once or twice a month, and then every other week, and then a couple times a week, and it
That's a
just,
lot.
it was a lot, bro. It was a lot. And I felt it. I felt it in my core. I felt, and that's when I started reaching out to people, man. You know what I mean? Like and like I reached out like probably a year before I did anything about it. I just kind of started like telling people like, I think I have a problem with this, and in my head I was like, okay, I'm making progress. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, sure.
you know what I mean? Like but I hadn't
You
stopped.
weren't ready.
I wasn't ready. No,
Yeah.
I wasn't. I wasn't ready. And
Well, what were some of the problems that were being caused by, I mean, doing cocaine a couple of times a week, you don't have to do something every day to have a problem with
no,
it,
no,
right?
not at all.
So what issues was it causing?
It was financial. You
Oh
know what I
yeah,
mean? There's
yeah.
there's some financial issues that were there. And it was just, like it was making it was letting me lead with a part of myself that like is not who I am.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like
Yeah.
it was letting me like do things that I would never do as, sober, like somewhat stable Tyree.
Mm-hmm.
I
Mm-hmm.
and then that next day, man, like that feeling of just, like morbid shame, that was just like this weight that would just push you down, and just like disgusted with myself. You know what I mean? And like that feeling of like the sun coming up, and like definitely not ready to go down. You know what I mean? And that
Mm.
like, and kind of feeling alienated, and like really like shameful. All these people that are getting up to go to work, you know what I'm saying? And
Yeah.
here I am, like ain't gone to sleep yet, So
Yeah.
that stuff was weighing on me, and I would always like I would always make sure I was gone. I wasn't at home. I wasn't around my kid, you know what I mean? Like I wasn't anywhere near him, like
And how old was your kid
he
around
was
this time?
probably 2. He was
Okay.
probably 2 years
Okay.
old, And
And what year was this about?
this was probably 4 years ago,
Okay.
so 5 years ago,
Yeah,
something like that.
2021, something like
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
definitely
Yeah.
2020, 2021 is And that's when, you know, and what really created the green light for me to kind of, you know, throw all caution to the wind was, like my, like I had talked about Colonel Green. He had ended up like, passing away in 2021, I believe it was. And at that point I was just like, I was kind of like I was spiraling, man. I was spiraling heavy, and part of me feels like I used his death as an excuse to just do whatever I wanted. But I was also like in pain, and you know what I mean, and like and I was looking for a way to feel better. And
How did the colonel die?
yeah, he took his own life. He took his own life. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And
I'm sorry. I know how
yeah.
much he meant to you.
Yeah, it's I appreciate that. It's unbelievable, really, and how many people have done that, and how many like, and even though he took his life, like he is a great man. You know what I mean? He was just, like he did so many for so many people, do so much for so many people. You know what I mean? And he was absolutely like a superhero to me, and I remember that feeling. I was just kind of like whatever at that point, and it was like in the beginning stages of like I've been in a toxic marriage for so long, and like I think I'd gotten accustomed to living miserably from the military, honestly. You know what I mean? Like, and like my childhood is pretty tough. I'd been used to toxicity, man. You know what I mean? That'd been the norm for me. And and I was lying to myself and lying to people around me, and like cocaine like helped make me a liar. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? And lying to myself that I didn't have a problem with it and that I'm good, And then, like I got to a point where I needed to I had to do something, and I went to a place, willingly went to a place in Arizona, and I spent like something like 10 days there,
Mm-hmm.
and I honestly feel like it was like shock treatment. You know what I'm saying? Like it was like just seeing where I was around all these other people who I am no better than. You know what I mean? Like but I'm like, man, I ended up talking to a psychologist while I was there at the treatment place, and he said to me, he's like, Tyree, you have a moral injury.
A
You know what I mean?
moral injury.
Yeah, and
Wow, that's an
it was profound to
incredible.
me, man. It
Yeah.
was honestly like super profound to me. You know what I mean? And it's not going to be cured with. There's no substance that's going to fix this. You know what I mean? Like it's going to take work, and it's going to take pain, and it's going to take like going through this life raw, feeling. You know what I mean? Like, and the only way that I can untangle this knot of trauma that I have within myself is by feeling and like allowing myself the space and the grace to deal with these issues, and not setting a time frame on this is when you should be better. And it's like, okay, I got out in 2014, is when I was retired from the military. It's, like at that point it was like 5 years later. It's like I don't have to be cured yet. It's not an excuse, but but like, man, like it was things were pretty not good. You know what I mean? And I kind of felt like I've worked through it. I'm alive. You know what I mean? I've killed myself. I'm here. I've worked through it. No, that wasn't the case at all. Like I've had a lot of feelings to feel, a lot of pain to go through. And it's like there's this other stuff, and then there's the shame from the addiction. You know what I mean? It's like, like it just makes you feel like like a horrible person. You know what I mean? Like I felt that way. I felt really shameful of myself, and
You had so much pain. That's a lot of pain.
yeah, it was it was a lot of pain, bro. It was a lot of pain. And but like I feel like if I know that pain, I can know the equal opposite. You know,
Mm.
my best friend, one of my best friends, his name's Scott Hanishan. He lives in the Bay, or excuse me, or is it down towards, I think Kirkwood Squaw. He said to me, he's like, Tyree, you take pain and turn it into something else. You know what I mean? With music. I was like, dude, that was one of the nicest things that anyone's ever said to me. You know what I'm saying? But it's like I think I can do that. You know, I think I've been navigating trauma my whole life, and you know, like, and mine is no worse than anybody else's. But it's to me, it's been a lot. You
It's
know,
yours.
it's mine. Yeah, and so you know, I ended up I'm going on 3 years of being sober, and
That's awesome, man.
thanks, dude. I appreciate it, and you know, I don't, you know, I don't flaunt it at all. I don't put it out there. I'm rarely on social media. I only go on if I have to, really, and that's to post something for something, you know, that like I'm contractually obligated to do, you know, like
That's great.
you know,
I wish I could do that. It's like, here's my fucking dog again.
yeah.
Yay.
Well, my partner, she's on it. I don't like. I don't.
Yeah.
There's a lot of good stuff about it, you know. But for me, it's like I don't. It didn't. It's not. It wasn't good for me. And I personally like navigating this life sober, like feeling all the feelings. It's a lot, man. It's a lot of stuff will just come up. You know what I mean? I couldn't imagine being like all fucked up. You know what I mean? That's, you know, and then adding that trauma and that misery and that guilt. You know what
Boy,
I mean?
isn't that something? You go from when you're in the throes of your using drugs and the pain that you're feeling, you think, I can't imagine living any other way.
Mm,
I can't imagine being sober, right?
mm,
And now then when you go through recovery and you're sober, I can't imagine living that way again.
I can't.
It's
I
amazing.
really can't. I mean, like, you know, it's just, it's not like I feel like I'm becoming who I'm supposed to be, and I'm not saying I am that person yet, but I'm like I feel like I'm on a trajectory that feels wholesome to me, and I don't feel like I spent a lot of my life as a liar. You know, I
Mm.
did a lot of lying to myself, most importantly. You know, which is like the worst lies. You know what I mean? And I don't feel that way anymore. I feel like I'm myself, and I feel like I'm out in the open about everything that I have going on, and you know, like I'm in a stable relationship that's not toxic, and you know,
This is your first or second wife or
second,
second wife?
yeah, yeah,
Got it.
and so she's, and we're not married. We're just
Oh,
and you know, but I love her with all my heart,
that's
you
great.
know, and like you know, we talked about it the other night. It's like, you know, like you add in like marriage, you add in the government to your relationship with marriage. You know what I mean? Like, but I mean, we just had a 2 month, we have a 2 month old now, OC Faye, and she's the smile in
Oh,
this kid. I mean, she just smiles all the time. She sees me and she just smiles. And I'm like, gosh,
oh,
that, yeah,
Faye.
and my little sister, her middle name was Faye. Her name was Leanna Faye Woods. And so we gave my daughter my late little sister's middle name, you know what I mean?
Mm.
And so you know, there's been some tough stuff, man. There's been some tough stuff, but I feel like I'm still like looking forward, you know what I mean? I'm facing forward, you know, and I don't feel like I was destroyed by any of these things, you know, combat, my childhood, like you know, a hardcore, you know, like disputed divorce, all these things, you know, band issues, like I have taken them and moved forward, you know, and like and you know, like I'm gonna continue to do that, you know, like
Yeah. What have you found out about Tyree in your recovery? What have you learned about yourself?
that I need space for myself. I need to recharge, you know what I mean? Like I need to be alone sometimes, and that's okay. Like I remember having people like like especially when I first started getting sober, and they're like, you never come out after the shows, you never, and I'm like, and I would feel guilty or like I wasn't cool enough, you know what I mean? It's like, no, it's because like that's not for me. You know what I mean? Like I know where that usually leads to. I've done
Uh-huh.
it. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's like, and I like some quiet so I can think. I spend a lot of time. I'm either listening to a book or I'm just like I don't have the radio on in my truck. I'm just thinking. But as a songwriter, like I think that's important. You know what I mean? That I'm listening to what's going on in my mind and the way I'm viewing the world through my lens, and then try to make it rhyme. You know,
How has been being a songwriter helped you in your recovery and your healing?
it's always been there. It's always there. And the thing about songwriting, it can be like a love-hate relationship at times. You know what I mean? It's like sometimes you're like, oh, this is awesome. And then it's like, why can't I make this work? Like
Yeah.
I've lost the ability to do it. You know what I mean? Like you go for a while and you don't write something. The last 2 years I've been at school at Berkeley School of Music and a degree for songwriting and music production, which deals with sound and, things like that. And I've had some really good teachers that have been like, you know what, like there is no writer's block. It doesn't exist. It's like you just gotta write something. You gotta put something down. It doesn't have to be perfect. It doesn't have to be a gym every single time. But the more you exercise that muscle, the more apt you are to come up with something. You know what I mean? So it's like now I write, songs damn near every day, and some of them are ridiculous. And honestly, like I'm getting ready to write uh, a children's song,
Oh, that's
that
amazing.
I'm pretty stoked on, and I haven't pitched it to some other musicians that I know that have kids as well, but I think they're going to be receptive to it, and it's like being a songwriter, being a musician can be tough. You're constantly weighing yourself against all these other people, And I remember doing that to myself for a long time. And I feel like I would do that on social media. I would like, oh man, I don't like, get nearly as many likes as this person does, or it's like, like, but I don't. The most important likes are like my camp. You know what I mean? Like
Yes.
that's it. But because if I'm trying to create something that I'm trying to get everybody to like, then am I doing it for them or am I doing it for me? You know what I mean? I gotta do it for myself. I gotta do what makes me feel good and what's like feels organic and real to me. Otherwise, I'm just gonna like sound like everybody else trying to sound like everybody else. You know what I mean?
That's
When
right.
there's only one of me, you know what I mean? Like there's only, and I'm the only one that can sound like him, and see the world through that lens. And now I'm looking at like, looking at my past and these traumas, like as a, like I fit them into songs all the time. I don't like explain it to everybody, but I fit so much of all of my, I mean, it's like journal entries in these lyrics, man. You know what I mean? And it's like only I know what's what,
Well,
and I think that's special to me, and it's and then having people like come up to me and tell me like this song meant this to me or this song, and I'm like, man, that's as good as it fucking gets, bro.
that's an amazing feeling, I bet.
That's like I mean like to invoke feeling, because I like music that makes me feel. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the best part about music, is feeling understood by these lyrics, by this phrase, by this progression. You know what I mean? Like, and it's like to have someone say that to me. I'm like, well, like I've had people that are like, man, I hope you make it, Tyree. I hope you can do it. I'm like, yeah, I mean, like I have, bro. You know what I mean?
Yes,
Like,
you have already.
I'm still here and
That's great.
moving forward, and so yeah, so songwriting has been very helpful in recovery, I would say. And I wrote a song called Lean In,
Well,
and
I'd love to hear you play some music.
yeah, I'd love to play
Yeah,
some.
let's
Yeah,
grab your
let's
guitar
do
real
it.
quick. Okay, we are back, and Tyree is back with his guitar, which I'm really looking forward to. You talked about how music helps your recovery and some of the songs you've written. What would you like to play right now?
Um, I think I'll play this song I wrote called "Lean In," which I believe is, kind of inspired by recovery and living in a different way, and and being okay to start something else.
I love it.
I'm gonna lean a day somewhere new. I'm gonna find my way, clear and true. But hearts get tired on the way, thoughts get blue. I'm gonna find my way from away to you. Well, the sun was hot and the river wide. It took all I got not to run and hide. But hearts get tired on the way, thoughts get blue. Hearts get tired on the way, thoughts get blue. Hearts get tired on the way. I'm doing fine by the way. I was lost for a while, hope I'm finding my way. Don't give up on yourself, don't give up on yourself. Lean in. Hearts get tired on the way. I'm doing fine by the way. I was lost for a while, hope I'm finding my way. Don't give up on yourself, don't give up on yourselves. Lean in.
Man, so I purposely avoided listening to that song so I can experience it for the first time today. You moved me in I don't know how many ways just now, Tyree.
Thanks,
That's
dude.
a beautiful
I
song.
appreciate it. Yeah, it's about, give yourself some space, cut yourself some slack, ease up, lean in. You know what I mean? All these things you have to do while we're trying to work on fixing ourselves. Um,
Don't give up on yourself.
don't give up on yourself. And that's me singing it, like yelling in the mirror at myself. You know what I mean? That's, like with all of this craziness with addiction and, suicide and all these things. It's like, man, I got to lean into what works. And I have to lean into the people that I have that are there for me and my family and things that are healthy outlets for these things. And this has been one of the healthiest outlets that I've ever had. You know what I mean?
There's a lot of wisdom to that. There's so much fucking wisdom, man, because it is when we're struggling, even in recovery. Yes, you do struggle in recovery.
Mm,
What do we do then? Where's Recovery 101 for us?
mm,
And Recovery 101 is leaning in to our support system, leaning into the things we know that work,
totally,
and it'll get you by.
totally. And the old things, like there's always that like nagging thought. You know what I mean? Like about, oh, this is what I used to do. You know what I mean? This is what it didn't work. You know what I mean? It didn't
Right?
work.
That's
It's
right.
not gonna work now. You know what I
That's
mean?
right. Yeah, man. It's like, at some point we learn that lesson.
Totally,
Takes us a while though.
totally.
So
if we're lucky,
if
you
we're
know what I
lucky,
mean? Yeah, dude.
just in case. What you've written about your military
I
service, your time
have.
in
Yeah,
Afghanistan?
I've got, I've got a couple of different tunes about, the incident in RC East. I wrote a song called Monday about it. And it's one of the first songs I wrote. It wasn't made for, like, I don't write songs with the idea of like it being a bluegrass song anymore because I'm not like playing with a bluegrass band. So I'm like really writing songs the way I want to. This is one of those songs that I was working through something and I didn't even realize it. Like I told you, like when, after I got knocked out and I ran into the street and like everybody was running all over the place, like there's a line in this that I said that I didn't realize that I was working through that. And but when I started to realize that, all right, this is what I'm writing about, I consciously made an effort to not talk about combat. You know what I'm saying? Like, and I felt like that would kind of like pigeonhole, like, like people that didn't have any experience in combat. You know what I mean? But people can identify with, things like shooting stars and like the feeling of like just dreading the monotony of like daily life sometimes. You know what I mean? So I wrote this song called Monday, and I'm gonna do my best to play it correctly. I let down on Sunday Eve, dreading the morn to be, dreading my life. I'm so tired of the pay, purchase, tired of the average pace, tired of lies. When I woke up, the sirens wailed just as the ceiling fell. I escaped just in time, made my way into the streets. No one was watching me. They ran for their lives. As comets fill the sky and the ground begins to shake, I'm glad I'm still alive. Was just a Monday for me. Who would have thought it'd be the end of the world? It's just a Monday for me. Who would have thought it'd be the end of the world? I'll be waiting in the morning light if the sun comes up to defeat the night. I'll be waiting in the morning light. I'll be waiting in the morning light. I'll be waiting in the morning light. If the sun comes up, we'll be alright. I'll be waiting. As comets fill the sky and the ground begins to shake, I'm glad I'm still alive. Was just a Monday for me. Who would have thought it'd be the end of the world? It's just a Monday for me. Who would have thought it'd be the end of the world? It's just a Monday for me. Who would have thought it'd be the end of the world? It's just a Monday for me. Who would have thought it'd be the end of the world?
Gorgeous. That's powerful. That's
Thanks, dude.
powerful, man. It's just a Monday. It was just a Monday.
Just a mundane, just regular old day might all we have left. You know what I mean? You never know, really. And I just see where I put in When I woke up, the sirens wailed just as the ceiling fell. I escaped just in time, made my way into the streets. No one was watching me. They all ran for their lives. That's where, when we decided to run back into the bunker, that was that line. You know what I mean? That was, that's and you know what? It was very cathartic to write that. And I brought it to an open mic and played it at an open mic, and I was so nervous, dude. Like it was the first time I performed in front of people, and like I had the other musicians at the open mic were like, "Is that a song about suicide?" And I was like, "No, it's not." But like I was glad that it was felt. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And it took a while to like kind of and like in most settings, like I'm not gonna sit there and like, oh, I wrote this song about something that happened in war. You know what I mean? It's kind of a deep thing. You know what I mean? Sometimes you just play the song. You know what I mean? And then let people, they fill in the blanks. It's like reading the book versus
Mm-hmm.
watching the movie.
Well, plus, so people take away what they want to take away.
Totally, man, 100%. And that's what I do.
Yeah.
I can know the song's about something, but I'm like, no, for me, the
It's
song's
it's
about
about
this.
that. That's right. We all
Yeah,
we all listen to music differently.
totally.
When you are now turning with your music, you're turning this pain and trauma into purpose. I mean, that's quite an evolution,
Yeah.
and I guess that's part of this, the recovery. That's what recovery
Yeah.
is, right?
Yeah. This is my recovery. You know what I mean? This is an integral part of it, and like, being able to, because, yeah, it's important, man. It's important to have an outlet, to have outlets, and like this guitar it's never judged me. You know what I mean? It doesn't
Mm-hmm.
like doesn't care what's happened in the past. You know what I mean? And it's like it's always been there. Every tour, I was able to get my hands on a guitar, and like I'd sit around and play every now and again. I had to play at a couple different funerals overseas. Those were my first like serious performances. I feel like
Mm-hmm.
but then there are times when we'd just be sitting around, and like me and 6 or 7 dudes from my unit were sitting around, and it kind of felt like something like all right, even if we were in like wherever we were, we were in combat, but like just the guitar made you feel like kind of homey a little bit, you know what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying?
Mm-hmm.
So I've been lucky in that regard. I've been lucky to have this, or to come across playing guitar and to not quit and to continue, because there's a long time where I was like, I'm not good enough, I can't do this, blah blah blah, all these like shitty things we'll say to ourselves, or I'll say to myself, like, and it's like, no, I just got to keep plugging away at it and accept that you're not always gonna play perfectly, but that's like how this life is, you know what I mean? It doesn't always like go to plan. It usually is unscripted, and
You spent a lot of your life not feeling good about it, right?
yeah.
You feeling good now?
I do feel good now, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I do, and there's days I don't. There's days where I have my hard times, and I make it known. You know what I mean? I don't try to hide it. Which is like, which is a
So
precursor
important.
for me for like like self-destructive,
Yes.
self-sabotaging activities. Is hiding it, hiding things. That's why it's like being the great liar. You know what I mean? Like lying that everything's all right. Right now, like everything's not perfect, but I feel good, bro. You know what I mean? If this was the last day I had on earth, I'd feel good about what I've done up until right now. You know what I mean? And yeah.
What would you, if you had a chance to talk to Colonel Green right now, after everything that you've gone through
Yeah.
and how much you struggled back then versus now,
Yeah.
what would you say?
Uh, I would say thank you. Yeah. Yeah. I would say thank you for helping me be brave at a time where I was very scared. And I'd say I'm sorry that that you suffered quietly for so long. And like I would I hope wherever he's at, he would see me and see that like I'm moving forward, and that's all that we can do. Let's move forward.
Man, thank you so much for coming by
Yeah, dude.
today.
Thanks for having me, bro.
You are just a beautiful person, Tyree. And you've done beautiful things. I'm just like, this has been my recovery today. This has been the highlight of my day.
Awesome.
And I'm so grateful to have you here in my living room. I really
I'm
am.
grateful to be here, bro.
Would you like to play us out with something?
Yeah. Let me see.
Yeah.
I had this dream the other night that we no longer had to fight. All the world's wrongs, they turn alright. I woke up sad and feel fright.